Yo, welcome to the Spaceless Realms Podcast. And I am here with Kalki, the one and only Kalki. So yeah, today we will be speaking about, you can finish up.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about the polymorphy of language, and we'll talk about how different languages can structure your reality differently, which is academically has been concerned with the idea that, mostly colonial languages that were studied were structuring reality in a way that was not beneficial to anybody who's indigenous to the planet. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of different research, decolonial research, to be done in that area, and it has been done in that area, like Maria Timoshko with like activist translation, the concepts of thick translation by Kwame Appiah. Yeah.
Okay, so for example, if we were a species that did not have any language and we just lived in harmony with nature, how different would that human being be compared to how we are now with this language that we speak in?
To be honest, I feel like it would very much be the way that Mother Nature intended it. That's very indigenous. It's like living off of prescience and intuition. I don't care if the phone's ringing to me. I'm not concerned with that. It's
Who
not
do
my
you
problem.
who do you think's calling you?
It might be a debt collecting agency. It might be a random phone call. It might be a friend. I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
it doesn't really matter right now. I'm just living in the moment, just appreciating this answer. Um, yeah, but I think very much this is the way that prescience is intended to be pre-science, right? It comes before science. Before the idea of structured language comes the idea of telepathy, intuition, prescience, heightened senses and abilities that allow you to communicate in ways that are more supernatural and natural than what we even think is normal.
Going into that, so I've been doing a lot of research into the Kabbalah lately and the Tree of Life, and it's a very unusual way of looking at life because a lot of people see it as like a cult or something like that, or like a secret society kind of thing. So a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
aren't involved with that art, but me personally, I'm very interested in it, and I'm interested in seeing how I can grow within that structure. So yeah, please tell me about how, yeah, tell me about what you think of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, how like from what I've the research that I've done, a lot of Jews like basically run the world. Like these really smart, these I don't know, the Jews are so smart, like so intelligent.
It depends which ones. It's good that you put it in a positive light because the people who run the world usually are people who hide behind religions or hide behind spirituality, the same way that, for example, we wouldn't call George Bush or Joe Biden a Christian, but they happen to be the so-called leaders of the free world in their time.
Hmm.
I would say it's the same kind of principle when you think of, religions and people that run the world. I don't know. I don't think Jewish people run the world, but I know what you mean by that because a lot of people who hide behind Judaism are actually they were forced into banking and jewelry
Yeah,
jobs, which is where the term Jew came from, jewelers.
yeah.
A lot of people don't know that, but you do obviously. But like, so their mystical development of the Kabbalah and the Sephiroth, to me it's much more advanced than the Torah is. And even though it's kind of like the hadiths, if you look at that in Islamic context, it's kind of like comparing the hadiths to the surats. So
Mm.
there's approved scriptures, and then there's the scriptures that are considered apocryphal. Most Jewish people that are not mystically inclined wouldn't necessarily be familiar with studying the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah. Now, I've done very little incursions into those. Um, I know that we studied one of the branches that I've studied in university actually had to do with the Zohar, the Book of Splendors,
Oh, that's
which is
cool.
actually very interesting. So we had a translation theorist who was obsessed with that. I forget his name now. I haven't done my homework very well in terms of translation studies, but it was very interesting and fascinating to see that there was a spiritual aspect to translation studies that I had not been aware of previously. And of course, there would be piles because mystical and sacred scripture translation has existed since the dawn of ages. Even the act itself of channeling that energy and speaking those words or writing those words is an act of translation in and of itself from an energy source that we don't even know sometimes where, from whence it emanates.
Hmm. For example, like I'm sure there was once upon a time where some form of energy, like some species of some kind of human could speak so much power into existence and make that thing happen. How did
Yes.
how did that disconnect happen where we can't do that anymore?
It's because we're at a lower vibrational frequency. That's what's referred to in Gnostic terms or in metagnostic and Sophionic terms as enoia. So enoic is like it's a pure thought manifestation that happens through the word, literally, like when they say in the word was God in the beginning. When the word is like goddess, I should say, or like a divine spark, then that divine spark sparks the seventh sense, self-manifesting destiny, self-prophecy, manifesting and actualizing your own life through speech, through thought, through action. That's the seventh sense. It's an archangelic sense. But
Mm.
people will never even teach you that the sixth sense is a real thing, let alone a hypothesis. They don't even teach that in school, but we have this knowledge that it's hypothetically possible and that certain gifted people have access to a sixth sense. Nobody tells you there's a seventh or an eighth. Eighth is shape shifting. It's related to indigenous traditions, shamanic traditions. Even the term shamanic, shamanas, actually, I wanted to say, shamanic, that a lot of people think it's a cultural appropriation. It actually is in a certain sense. Shamanas actually comes from the term shamanist, comes from India in Sanskrit, Sanskriti. Shamanas is a divine feminine healer and witch and sorcerer and mesmer and magician and herbalist. And, she does a bit of everything. So
Mm.
that's where the term shaman comes from. And a lot of people think it's cultural appropriation to use that with indigenous people. It isn't any more than, say, the term that's been a misnomer that has been, inappropriately given to indigenous people of this land, and they were called Indians. So the term shaman comes from the same principle. It was stolen from India.
Hmm. Interesting. Hmm.
That doesn't really answer a question about the Kabbalah, the Sephiroth, but the tree of life in and of itself, I think, which is represented in pagan traditions as Yggdrasil, is actually where the blueprint for the Sephirothic or the Kabbalistic tree of life was taken from. And that has to do with some of the major chakric points of a tree formation with the branches. But then the branches, some of them were removed, and if you look at the Kabbalah's tree of life, it seems incomplete in the form that it's in with the 10 points. I believe there was originally 12 points, which I watched a video a long time ago. One of a Fey sistren showed this to me. A Vanara kindred showed this to me, and she showed me the fall of Atlantis and the corruption around the time where the Nephilim invaded Mars and nuked the atmosphere, and which is why Mars is uninhabitable now. Around that same time, they came down to Earth to corrupt Atlantis, and then they triggered the war between Atlantis and Lemuria off of racist principles.
Hmm.
And history forgot those omens. So that all is linked to that because the island of Atlantis was built off of the Kabbalistic tree of life's blueprint. The major energy centers were built off the Kabbalah, but a 12-point Kabbalah. And two of the points were sunken and on the first attack from Lemuria. And when they went underwater, that then we only have the remnants of that 10-point Kabbalah, which is based on the structure of the island of Atlantis. That's something that I've partially learned about in the Atlantis Enigma as well, too, which is a book from a while ago that I studied during my PhD, world wisdom literature research. But yeah, that's a convoluted way to kind of express a little bit bits and pieces of the knowledge that I have relating to those spiritual traditions.
That's really cool because I feel like people are initiated in these structures whether they know it or not because our reality is basically our reality is like structured off of these um archetypes of creation in a way. So
Mm.
people use it like consciously or unconsciously. Um, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just really cool.
No, that was super deep, actually. That's exactly why I was nodding. And I'm like, yo, fuck yes. Archetypes of creation. Let's get into tarot on that one, which
Mm.
structures language as reality as well, too, because the tarots are usually in multiple languages. and they actually restructure reality from a supernatural perspective. It kind of links into the extrasensory perceptions that we were talking about, because tarot is actually a manifestation of the seventh sense. It's a manifestation of shapeshifting as well, too, and realizing the different facets that it coexists within ourselves. I've created a tarot spread that I decided to do based on past, present, and future, and higher and lower and middle realms, that I think actually kind of exemplifies the multiplicity of tarot. And you can look at it from whichever perspective of the person. If you're standing across the table, it's like the vantage point of the other person is determining that that card is backwards, but from your perspective on the other side of the table, the card is forward. So some cards might be interpreted in an opposite reading from the opposite perspective of the person. I usually give them every opportunity to interpret it from every direction, and then you go from left to right or right to left, depending on if you go past, present, future, or future, present, past. And basically it gives a huge it's a polymorphic reasoning, which is similar to me, the way I would think about language structuring reality. Because if you start throwing different languages, si on commence à parler dans différentes langues, si nosotros decidamos de hablar en otras lenguas, es posible para nosotros de escribir una realidad diferente. C'est possible pour nous d'écrire une réalité différente. It's possible for us to write a different reality based on what we are structuring, the phonetic nature of the words that we speak. They restructure our perception of that reality.
That was
Like
cool.
say,
That kind
no.
of tripped me. That kind of tripped me out. I was like, wait, what? No, that's very true. Like you can see like how someone would grow up in, say, like a third world country that doesn't have language, or only a certain kind of language that is structured off of the society that they live in. But then someone who lives in like a first world country and has like all the luxuries of being able to speak a language like this, it's very, very powerful, you know?
Yep. Yeah. And all of my indigenous languages were stolen from birth. I never even had a chance. So I was forced to learn forced to learn non-indigenous languages from birth
Hmm.
in residential school and in neo-residential college.
Hmm.
But it's still, to me, I'm glad I learned them, because I've repurposed them against the oppressor. You know, like I
Hmm.
feel like it's very important to use those hegemonic languages, those tools of the empire that they used to subjugate and enslave us and genocidally erase our cultures. And then we erase theirs back with the knowledge of their stupidity, which is embedded within those words that we speak to them, literally.
Hmm. This is, of course, it's tied into everything, but I'm going to change the topic because I want to ask you something. How does someone keep going even when they keep failing
You know,
and they feel
to
like all
me,
hope is lost?
I'm trying to tie that into languages. Imagine you start thinking all hope is lost because you've studied everything there is to study in the English language, and you realize it's all colonial cultures and deceptions and systems that make you feel depressed about everything. And you realize that there's no end to the suffering or to the abuse, and it doesn't seem to be a purpose. But then you learn an indigenous language, you learn bits and pieces of other realities, and suddenly it gives you infinite creative imagination to think differently and to want to live on.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just when we think it's over, it's kind of like you've been playing the same video game your whole life and it's rigged. And you know you can't play anything else. You never even known another game. And it's the most boring game in the world because you hate it. Like you're stuck in this role. But then suddenly you realize there's infinite characters and infinite games you can play, but you just never knew they were accessible.
Hmm.
That's how I would look at it.
Hmm.
Like I'll put it as simply as me getting these tattoos today, like the lotus flowers I got on my fist.
Yeah,
It changed my whole perception of reality. It changed the energy in my hands. I realize I have hand chakras now, and it always reminds me. And suddenly, I'm creating a supernatural aspect of my character that I'm enforcing and reinforcing through those talismans, through those pieces of art that are like permanent jewelry.
huh. What do you think about runes? Like kind of like Nordic runes. Like for
Oh, I
example,
love them.
bro, for example, like if you see on my phone, like oh shit, you can't really see it, but you know, like the Bluetooth symbol. The
Yeah,
Bluetooth symbol is literally like a
it's a
rune.
rune. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It's beautiful. I just made a Viking album recently where I started restudying Viking mythology, and I realized it's like we forget this on a daily basis that practically all the days of the week that we have in English are based off of Viking mythology and Norse mythology.
Go into that. Go into that.
So very interesting, right? You've got, first of all, you've got the primal worship of the sun and the moon, which is Sunday and Moon Day, Sunday, Monday. So that's how you start the week. You
Sunday,
worship the
Moon
sun,
Day.
you worship the
Yeah.
moon. Now,
Sunday, Moon
those,
Day.
some people would say that goes into all cultures. I'm like, even more so, it ties it into the diaspora. So
Yeah.
you've got the worship of the sun, the worship of the moon, and then on Tuesday, Tears Day, right?
Tears Day. Hmm.
That's Tyr, that's a Norse like warrior divinity. So then you've got Tears Day, Tuesday. Then you've got, you
Wait,
know,
wait, but what do you mean by Tears Day? Like, what's so significant about
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
So I wouldn't know enough to actually be able to define, but like if you look at the entirety of the spectrum of those days of the week, they're all different worship of main Valhalla divinities in, in the heaven of Viking mythology. So then you've got, you just, it's a slightly modified version, but that's exactly where it came from. So you've got Tears Day, which is Tuesday, and then you've got Woden's Day, which is Wednesday,
Woden's Day.
right? Woden,
Mhm.
Odin. So that's the king of the gods, literally the king of the warrior gods.
Bro, I met Odin like in the flesh.
No, I believe you. I
Yeah.
believe you. I met different people with different names that I'm like, I met Krishna in the flesh, I met Lakshmi, I met Vishnu, I met like so many different people. I'm like, whew.
Hmm. Okay. Thursday.
So Thursday,
Wait, what?
Thursday,
Oh,
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So Thor with the mighty hammer.
yeah.
So there you go. Do we worship Thor on Thursday? I don't know. It's a good question.
Mm.
And then
Oh,
Friday, Frida, the
Frida. Yeah,
Norse
yeah.
goddess of cold and frost and snow, right? So Frida's day, Friday.
So why do so many people feel like they want to like party on Friday?
It's a really good question. It's just because we've been defined of inverting principles. Maybe we should be chilling, but maybe that's the concept of chilling that has to do with chilling. When in
Yeah.
French, when we say that we're really cold, it means you're really high.
Huh. Really?
If you
That's
say
cool.
I'm freezing,
Huh.
I'm frozen in French in Quebec, that means like I'm high.
Hmm. What was Saturday?
Saturn. That one is the only one that doesn't fit within the Viking mythology. So that's actually a Roman god of Saturnalia, partying and a bunch of shit. So that Saturn's day, that's when people rape and torture and abuse and party.
Hmm.
So that has to do with the celebration of Saturnalia. It's pretty crazy shit.
Yeah, that Saturday is a crazy day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of Saturday, tomorrow's 420.
Oh yes, I
And it's
remember I
on
saw that
Saturday.
today. I'm like, yes, I got half a pound of reasons to celebrate.
Ah, a ton of reasons. What about, oh yeah, that's the full week then. What's really interesting is like when I was younger, I always thought like the the week started on Monday. But then now that I'm getting older, I see that the week starts on Sunday.
Yeah, it does. Because it begins on the day of rest, the day of worship of the sun, where you rest in the sun, you gain your melanation, you regain your knowledge, you appreciate, everything that life has given you for all the days that you've worked hard before that.
Hmm.
But that's how it starts. It should start with resting and then being our truest selves. And then the moon day, we worship the moon. That should be creative endeavors, should be like arts, should be like, doing whatever we want to do, going out in nature, worshiping nature. And then Tyr's Day, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know what Tyr has as specific attributes as a warrior god,
Maybe to
but
like embrace your emotions more.
yeah, that's quite
Yeah.
possible.
Hmm. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
like going back, like that also kind of links into the Kabbalah and how the Kabbalah is like a blueprint to the universe and the blueprint to the creator, the Most High. So
You're right, and it is lunar based too.
yeah. So if you were to, because this vessel and like what we are is like a reflection and a piece, a fragment of that supreme creator, then if we can make our puzzle piece fit into that divine design, then we will be able to reap the maximum abundance and
Mm-hmm.
prosperity of everything that it provides, you know?
I agree entirely. And that's why I've always loved the mystical traditions. To me, I stray away and I stay away from the mainstream. That's
Yeah,
a good rhyme,
exactly.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah, because too many people like it's like the ego is just so brainwashed. It's crazy. Like even Yeah, you literally, it's a painful process to actually go through this shit, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like I think it's Deepak Chopra that said this a long time ago. Even if he's overquoted, it's a very interesting quote. He said something along the lines of religion is believing in somebody else's experience, and spirituality is having your own.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Damn. Nice spliff.
Thank
Oh,
you.
somehow like your match burns so slowly, so it doesn't burn your fingers.
So that's good matches for you.
Yeah.
Redbird Chilean matches, wooden matches.
Mm.
So, shaman long time ago told me, in spirit form, told me don't use anything else in matches when you're smoking sacred tobacco. Try not to use lighters, butane, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So I tried. I failed, but I try.
Mm. What kind of attributes made those shamans different than the average person?
I would say those ones they spoke to me in dreams. So it's different. They're not corporeal. Like I didn't meet them in this physical plane.
That's
But
really
I've met
cool.
many in the physical flesh too. Like my
Yeah.
father was actually a shaman in the north, but I don't think he was a very good one, to be honest. That's just me speaking. It's funny because it's part of my heritage, but at the same time, I'm not proud of it.
Hmm. Explain that more. How did you, what was that experience like meeting those shamans in your dreams?
Oh, it was very unique. To be honest, most of my dreams they're very nightmarish. Like most of my dreams, I don't meet shamans. When I actually meet shamans, or I meet them in, you know, Nahwals, Ajkis, when I meet brujos, when I meet people from those traditions that are hosting, sweat lodges or so. And I've met many in the flesh too. They've
Yeah.
taught me many a lesson. To be honest, they taught me to be a lot more chill, but they taught me that you can still be very convincing and be calm at the same time.
Hmm.
In my dreams, that's another story. They're very ethereal beings. Like I don't know if I could even trace like a figure to them,
Hmm.
but they speak to me telepathically very often.
Yeah, like man, I feel like at this stage I've put myself to sleep from that mystical side of reality.
Nah, you haven't. We're talking about it right now. You're
Yeah.
not. You're not. You're not even remotely asleep. I think you're just very humble about it. My whole life, I thought like you, and I was like, "What is this experience? I want to experience what this is like. I want to have a direct vessel to what is this etheric templates, akashic records. I want to have access to that." And then some voice told me, literally, like, once you have pure intentions, you'll have access to everything. But you have to realize it might take you hundreds of lifetimes, millions of lifetimes. And I said, it's okay. I'm still willing to search for it because, like, to me, I'm like, I'm in a rush, but like, if it takes that long, at least I'll be persisting towards something. So you talk about earlier, like, persisting towards a certain reality. There's many stories in Buddhism that tell the story about the disciple that wants to be enlightened that same lifetime. And he looks for it and they tell him, listen, it might take you a million lifetimes. And he doesn't want to. He's like, no, I need it now, now, now. And then there's the other student that's like, oh, and then Shiva appears, let's say, or Buddha appears. Someone appears in different stories, different traditions, like someone appears and says, 100 lifetimes you'll be enlightened. And the disciple says, really? 100? That's it? That's not that long. And then they end up finding enlightenment in that direct lifetime because they were so humble about not expecting it. So
Wow,
to me,
that's
I can't
so
say I've achieved
true.
enlightenment, but it my supernatural experiences began with that realization.
That is so true, man. Hmm. Yeah.
Like I wonder sometimes how I ended up being able to speak all these things and then some voices like because you didn't try to get to that level.
Yeah, then it came to you paradoxically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those primordial paradoxes of existence.
We have 5 minutes and 55 seconds, 555 left on the countdown. So please go into that paradox of how that works.
Well, if you start thinking about the primordial nature of cones and paradoxes, which is what a cone is, but it's like a poetic paradox, it's an artful paradox of nature. There's paradoxes that don't make sense. There's paradoxes that aren't supposed to exist. Like if you're trying to force two magnets that are repelling forces towards each other, like two people that really don't want to see each other and they try to shove them in the same room. That's not a primordial paradox. It's not a normal paradox, not a healthy one, I should say. But the truth of cones and paradoxes, if you start looking at the contradictory nature of reality, you say that wall is white. But if you focus long enough on the wall and you focus to see the micro particles and atoms whirling around, you would see the light and the darkness. And most of it would be darkness. So the wall is both black and white. It's black in its primordial nature, but there's sparks of light within it. But it's white in appearance if it's painted that way. Or maybe it's black if it's painted black. Or maybe it's purple or something else. But those are the illusions of matter whirling particles that give the appearance of a certain coating based on an assemblage of chemicals that gives the illusion of kind of like a cardboard dropout of what reality is supposed to be. But that's based on what we want to structure our reality as. It's the same thing as a Noahic manifestation in a different sense, where you start having creative tapestry. Instead of using sequel paint or bear or something to paint the wall, you paint the walls of your imagination with the canvas of your thoughts.
You paint the wall of imagination with the canvas of your thoughts. Holy shit. Well, I need to write that down. Where's my book?
Yo, thank you, Bridget. You're the one inspiring this, to be honest, man. I would not have thought to even do this if it wasn't for, I was like, you know what? It's been a couple of days. We should do this.
All right, so please rephrase that for me.
You paint the canvas of your imagination. Oh, no, you paint the walls of your imagination with the canvas of your thoughts. So it's basically like hanging up an art gallery of different, like, structured, poetic, creative, evocative, supernatural thoughts, manifestations. And the thoughts become manifestations when you put your thoughts into action and you manifest them and you believe in that self-manifesting destiny. Then suddenly it becomes inevitable. And if you embed a mnemonic rhyme scheme within it, if you embed a rhythmic, mnemonic, phonetic, phonemic pattern within that, then suddenly it reinforces the nature of that supernatural reality, which is manifesting through pathokinesis, through telekinesis, through pyrokinesis of bad thoughts, hagokinesis of bad thoughts, and then pathokinesis, restructuring the emotions in a positive sense or in a quantum sense, which actually gives nature to polymorphic reality, collapsing the binary illusion of religion and submission and domination and patriarchy.
Bro, you're going in right now. You said some, like, you just summed up everything. Wait, sorry. I forgot what we were.
Yo, thank you. I feel like I'm good to start writing another album soon.
Yeah. All right, so you said you paint the wall of your imagination with
The canvas of your thoughts.
the canvas. Okay, the canvas of your thoughts. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how that popped up in my mind, but I would thank Akasha and I would thank all the beings, including you, that actually made this possible, and thank you to everyone out there that's listening. Sorry, this was mostly in a hegemonic colonial language. Je m'excuse sincèrement tout le monde. Mis apologias. Perdóname, Pasque, Añe, Pachamama y Kenka, 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 Tlazokamati, Walmiak. A todos, a todas, a todas las dios y diosas, oraclas, del cambio, de las tribus de Iris, de todo el mundo, del mundo entero, de todas las densidades. Thank you to everyone of all densities, all the beings, all the gods and goddesses, the oracles, the prophetesses, all the beings of the entire world, of every different reality that we've encountered and that we haven't encountered yet.
Wow. I'm with you on that, man.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, give me a second. I'm gonna have to hit you back up because I have a sister that's in the hospital right now. I have to help out with something. So
Okay.
she's stable, but like she needs my assistance, I believe, with a couple of different liaisons, so I can link her up with the right people.
Okay. All right. I bless the space. Thank you.
Yo, likewise.
Everything that you said, yeah, to infinity and beyond, bro.
Peace.
Peace.
Om Hrim Shrim Hrim Lakshmi Naya. Lakshmi Narayan.